but we should have the option to consider who the best candidate to fill the vacancy is.
I'm listening to what people are saying, but I'm not convinced that the next in line is necessarily the most democratic process.
A by-election or by-elections is not a good option. Besides the obstacle of the cost, the timing would mean the results will not be reflective of the democratic process. Appointing the next candidate in line is not a good option. It ignores the votes of the majority who elected the winners.
We know that, in our system, people who win don't always have the majority. Well,
that there's nothing in the amendment that the presumption in the amendment is that that previous candidates are still interested. We could be appointing somebody who doesn't want the job, and that strikes me as an opportunity to create another vacancy and another discussion. So why would we do that?
I think a lot of the community wants us to respect democracy, and democracy allows the minority to express their opinions, but it is the rule of the majority. So it is the majority vote that determines what happens.
I'm not buying everything that I'm hearing. I'm not buying a lot of what I'm hearing. I think we owe it to the people who live in these communities some transparency. I think we owe it to them.
I think I just want to clarify that when all trustees are selecting the 10 people to proceed to the the maximum of 10 that will proceed to the public presentation component of the process, we're not ranking them at that point. We're just naming 10 people we want to hear more from based on the submission of their application, which we won't know the names because they will be listed as applicant A, B, C, D, or E. So that eliminates any conscious or unconscious bias, and we have to read the response to the questions that are in the report, and consider what their answer is and whether we want to hear more from them.
And we've been reminded that the election was not that long ago. Certainly I remember it well, and I remember competing visions being on the ballot, and I remember the voters clearly choosing one vision, one that was represented by Trustee Meisner and Trustee Snyder. We are asked in our meeting norms to give consideration to absent voices. I'm giving consideration to the absent voice of Trustee Meisner, giving consideration of the absent voice of Trustee Snyder. I know what they stand for. I know that that voters clearly chose that. They chose me.
Which we won't know the names, so that eliminates any conscious or unconscious bias.
But I think that we have a responsibility to our electorate, to the people who put us here, to make a decision as to who the best people are for the position.
In fact, it would be an undoing of democracy and the democratic voice of the fall election. The candidates who did not win for many reasons. The people spoke. To simply give them the job would undo and undermine the voices of the many, many people who turned out and voted in the fall. The candidates who did not win for many reasons.
We know that, in our system, people who win don't always have the majority. Well,
And I'm prepared to support an open application process wherein previous candidates are invited to apply, and if they are deemed to be the best candidates, then people will vote to appoint them.
So that eliminates any conscious or unconscious bias.
People are concerned because what was a democratic process is now turning into a process where we essentially become the judges for the region. And so when you look at the fact that we had 3 trustees who basically sat on this committee and essentially came back with the same model, maybe a few tweaks, the same model used in, I believe, 2012, 2017, same model. And then we are asking the region to fill out questions, specific questions that will reveal their ideology.
So that eliminates any conscious or unconscious bias.
I mean, when the election happened, they could just give all the information about themselves and people could decide based on that.
In the interest of democracy, it is true, people, the next in line will have gone out and campaigned. However, my memory of the past election is that there were quite a few candidates in different places, and I think it's important to, if we're going to put somebody on the board, it's important that we know that they represent, to the best of our knowledge and ability, the majority of or as high a percentage as possible of the voters in the constituency.
So that eliminates any conscious or unconscious bias.
So we're ranking them. And then from there, I guess we send it in. But it's a mystery because I don't know what happens after that.
As far as where does the ranking go? Now, this is where we get into an area I'm not good at, and that's technology. So I'm going to suggest that the Google form that everybody fills out and provides with their responses to the questions is then put into magic Google form language, and the wherever it goes, it's like magic.
So you're first stating that the names are irrelevant as far as I'm concerned because the ideology will be in the application. And so, of course, trustees are going to base their decision on what the person is saying and how it aligns with their own ideology.
Any interview process would require that we are looking for people who are aware of what their responsibilities will be.
What criteria are we going to be measuring? The questions that are being put out, what criteria? What is the right answer? Because we must have an idea what the right answers are.
We don't see the names at any point. And I understand, the concerns coming up about ideologies, but I just want to reiterate the questions for everyone in the room, just to clarify. The first one says, what do you understand to be the role of a school board trustee? That's a really important question for anyone that's going to be stepping into this room. We need to see evidence that someone has taken the time to look at what is the Education Act, what are our board's procedures. Maybe they've looked through a meeting or two. That's important. Anyone who's expressed interest in the board and being at this table will have done that. So that's just a question to assess interest.
I just wanted to go back to a question that Trustee Ramsey had posed regarding what's the criteria that the applications will be evaluated on, and I would suggest that the trustees that are doing the job are the best ones to understand the criteria for this job. So it's our responsibility to do this job, and when we're reading through the applications, it's our perception or our own interpretation of what the role of trustee is that we'll be using as our guide to determine who we want to pick for the 10. So that eliminates any conscious or unconscious bias.
And when you look at what do you believe are the opportunities and challenges in public education today, there is a lot that someone can talk about. And the things that they choose to highlight will give us a sense of what is a concern for our board.
So that eliminates any conscious or unconscious bias.
And the last one is, what would you like to accomplish as a trustee in the next 3 years? So these are not questions that are asking about someone's ideology. They're asking about their level of interest, focus, awareness of the needs of our region.
So that eliminates any conscious or unconscious bias.
One of the complaints we've been hearing is the lack of transparency and the lack of accountability. And when you go through this whole process, there's not one place in this process where we're actually including the people of Wellesley and Woolwich or Waterloo or Wilmot. There's no place for the electorate.
Because trustees are the ones making the list of 10, shortlisting the 10 people, up to 10. So it's trustees who are going to be looking at the information, so that eliminates any conscious or unconscious bias.
So I don't think that we should presume that the outcome of the last fall's election, that runners-up necessarily would be the voters' choice.
So that eliminates any conscious or unconscious bias.
I've actually had the opportunity to be the runner-up in more than one election, and not once did I consider that it would be automatic that I would be given a position should that person resign or unfortunately pass away.
people who win don't always have the majority. Well,
I probably would have applied, but I would have adhered to the process decided by the democratic body that made that decision, and make my best case. I'm looking forward to seeing who applies and to the process unfolding over the next month.
So that eliminates any conscious or unconscious bias.
I just wanted to say to the board that I think we all want a strong and effective public education system that gives every student a first-class academic program that prepares them for life. And I think we all want to forever eradicate racism and all bigotry. But I think it's very clear that we disagree about the ways and the means that we could achieve that. We disagree about the concepts and the vocabulary. And I think, except in rare cases, these disagreements that I've stated very publicly before are honest, sincere differences of opinion, and are a healthy part of a vigorous democracy. That said, as I listen to my colleagues discussing and justifying doing something more messy than democracy, which would be to appoint the next runner-up, and I listen to the arguments, Madam Chair, and trustees, listen to the arguments that, well, we did this in 2020, and it was only 50 votes short, and it was a pandemic, and that's why we appointed the runner-up. But right now, that same argument is also supporting the whole idea that we could potentially appoint someone that got 0 votes because they were not on the ballot.
I don't right now feel comfortable that going to the next in line necessarily means that we are representing the majority of voters.
They didn't put their names on a ballot, and they didn't get any votes, and basically they'd be getting appointed. They could potentially get appointed. Going over some of the flyers and the pamphlets of the candidates that ran in the last election, and I think their viewpoints are very clear. And it brings me back to what I'm saying, that we have honest disagreements, and we cannot pretend that we, as the majority of trustees, are in fact the entire board, that we are in a vacuum of somewhere, and we don't. The arguments here that people from all backgrounds are out to see what it is that we're doing. So we're not in that. We know what the discussions are. We've seen some of the discussions. I'm not going to import it into the discussion here fully in terms of some of the things that I've seen, that even some of my colleagues here that are even on the committee and sitting around the board table have supported the idea or made commentary that, well, there was only 800 votes over here and 50 votes here, and try to justify that, okay, we're going to go to an appointment process for 0.
But we should have the option to consider who the best candidate to fill the vacancy is.
I can tell you, and then I'll remind my colleagues, that at no point in 2020 did it come up about, we are doing this because of the pandemic. Okay? What was enthusiastically accepted was that the next in line, the next runner-up would be appointed. It was actually Trustee Watson that initially moved that Laurie Trimble be appointed. Okay? Nobody was judging anything else about Laurie Trimble. So at the end of the day, I'm just wondering why we want to continue down this road with this divisive process that is dividing the community, and it's going to leave people with a lot of questions.
When we talked about the secret ballot, there was a lot of deliberation. Ultimately, what it came to was that when you are making your final decision, your colleagues that you're going to be working with, is it appropriate that you're starting on the foot of, I didn't vote for you and now I'm working with you? Like, if that happens, does that set, complicated dynamics? If someone new is joining the board and they see that Mina Wasim, for instance, wasn't the person that voted for me, does that create tension for them that, so we want to ensure that someone feels like they're welcome here to the board. We don't want to start on a foot of, you're not, this person doesn't support you being here.
We are not electing a chairperson. And that's why I made the distinction between an election and a selection.
But if you've been paying attention, democracy is the heart of all our discussions.
That said, Madam Chair, is that as I look at the recommendation, and I'm going to have a question about this, I don't understand as a public board of trustees why there would be any justification for us to have, for example, if this passes for the majority rules, for us to have a secret ballot, for example, to do the selection. This is a very public process. And the only times that we are allowed as a board to go in camera, because this is basically like going in camera, the secret ballot, is specifically defined in the Education Act. So we're talking, I need to remind us, the entire board, that we're not talking about an election here that we're doing. We're talking about a selection.
Can you wrap up, Trustee Ramsey?
Where is the transparency in this process?
This is the most transparent we've ever been. That's my personal opinion, but I will say the questions are public. The presentations, the way that we're approaching this ranking, the removal of the names. You can't just, as a trustee, if you're sitting here, you can't just select your neighbor just because you see, oh, hey, my neighbor X person applied. You look at someone's perspective and their interest and their dedication to this board.
So that eliminates any conscious or unconscious bias.
And I'm hoping that if this motion is approved, it will provide the board an opportunity, an exit strategy to get out of the impasse that we're in, and opens the door for a motion, without going for reconsideration, a motion that would actually fill the vacancies with the first runner-up in the last regular school board election in the municipality where the vacancy occurs. That's what should have been done on May 15th. It didn't. This postponement will provide that opportunity, depending on what we're hearing back, and we could have this matter resolved actually before June 29th. We need to listen to the mood of the community. This is very divisive. Many candidates put their names on the ballot, Madam Chair. Their names were on the ballot. It was fine to do so in appointing Lori Trimble.
Just speaking to the motion to postpone.
I'm sorry?
Just speaking to the motion to postpone and the survey.
Okay, that's fine. All right.
Okay.
I'll just stop at that, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
When we're hearing delegation, we're going to just ratify it and everyone's off for summer. It just, the optics don't look good. I think, we ratified this original motion the same night, moved right into board meeting, ratified it, stamped it, and really didn't give any sober second thought or allowing delegations to come forward. They're coming forward now, but it's already ratified. And so I think if we just hit the pause button, maybe we could come up with a better solution, a better way of looking at, democratic principles and making it so much easier for the board. And we don't have to put ourselves in the position of judging for a community that I don't live in. And I don't know the people in that community. And although I would like to finish.
We're speaking to the motion to postpone.
I'm giving context to why I want the postponement. So I think that it would be important to just take some extra time. This doesn't have to be done. It doesn't have to be a slam dunk. And I hope that the trustees on the prevailing side, they get an opportunity to serve a notice of reconsideration if they so choose to, and then we can come up with a democratic solution that would please everyone.
I will be voting against postponing. But before I say that, I want to apologize to Trustee Watson. She was commenting and I made a rude sound, and I apologize. So, I will be voting against postponing because postponing will not change will not allow us to find a perfect solution that everybody will be happy with. It delays it delays the inevitable. It delays the inevitable. Sorry. And there's no way. And so I will be voting against postponement. Sorry.
Thank you. So the recorded vote on a motion to postpone. Thank you. That's 3 in favor, 6 opposed, and that motion is defeated.
But if you've been paying attention, democracy is the heart of all our discussions.
This is a recorded vote on the amendment to the motion. Thank you. That motion is defeated with 3 in favor and 6 opposed.
Trustee Watson's motion to postpone until a survey has been done of the community.
So, the recorded vote for the motion to postpone. That motion is defeated with 3 in favor and 6 opposed.
So we are on the motion that is on folio 60 and is the recommendation that the Waterloo Region District School Board approve the recommended process timeline and application that will be used to fill the vacancy for the positions of trustee Waterloo Wilmot and trustee Woolwich Wellesley as outlined in this report and related appendices. So that is the motion that we're voting on, and it is the recorded vote. Yep.
Please, thank you.
That motion is carried with 6 in favor and 3 opposed.
Okay, done. Moving on to question period. Trustee Woodcock?
Yes, I'd like to move adjournment.
Okay.
I need some, sorry, I didn't see.
Okay, I need a seconder for a motion to adjourn. Trustee Johnson? Okay.
Yeah.
Motion to. It's her ability to move a motion to adjourn, and you can vote against that.
We look around us.
There's no debate on this. There's been a motion to adjourn and it's been seconded. So now we will vote. All in favor of adjournment? Two, three, okay. And opposed? Okay, and the motion to adjourn has been moved and seconded, and the meeting is adjourned.
But if you've been paying attention, democracy is the heart of all our discussions.